the project assistant for the Blue Carbon Program at Oceanus Conservation. This session is led by the Global Landscapes Forum, Mindanao chapter. And on behalf of our team, we are sending out a huge welcome to you all. In this session, we will hear about the work of young leaders from all over the Philippines to share their initiatives for climate action with their local communities. This will be an open discussion in celebration of World Environment and World Oceans Day. So we will have an introduction from Ms. Camille Rivera, the co-founder and director of Oceanus Conservation. Then we will also hear from our panel speakers, Ms. Issa Barte, Ms. Mary Jane Lamoste, and Ms. Kara Rosas. To start us off is Ms. Camille Rivera.
From all of you to this highly anticipated webinar on community-based climate action. Today, we gather here as a diverse group of individuals united by a common goal, and that is our commitment to building a sustainable future for our planet. So this webinar serves as a platform to exchange ideas, share experiences, and explore the transformative power of community-based initiatives in addressing the climate crisis. Communities have always been the bedrock of our society, and it is within their collective strength that we find the potential for lasting change. And throughout this webinar, we will hear from esteemed experts in the field, passionate activists, and community leaders who have witnessed firsthand the transformative power of grassroots movements. We will explore topics such as circular solutions, restoration, regenerative agriculture, and the importance of education and awareness in fostering a culture of sustainability. So I urge you all to actively participate, ask questions, and engage in thoughtful discussions. Let us foster an environment of collaboration and open-mindedness where ideas can flourish and new partnerships can form. By the end of this webinar, I hope we will be equipped with practical tools, valuable insights, inspired from all these people who have shared their experiences to take our climate action efforts to new heights. But what better way to show our efforts through our Global Landscapes Forum page? We are the Global Landscapes Forum Mindanao chapter, and I would like to show you a short video. Thank you.
Hi, we are Oceanus Conservation, a science-based non-profit environmental organization focusing on the conservation and restoration of blue carbon habitats in the Philippines. About a year ago, we joined the Global Landscapes Forum's GLFx program, a digital platform designed to enable local communities towards sustainable and integrated landscape management.
Through this partnership, we created the GLFx Mindanao chapter. Since then, we have been working with communities to help them achieve their conservation and livelihood goals. GLFx Mindanao projects include establishment of mangrove nurseries, citizen science training on mangrove and seagrass monitoring, and mangrove restorations.
Today, in celebration of World Environment Week, we have invited remarkable individuals who are passionate advocates for protecting and conserving our environment. They will share their views and stories on climate action initiatives, how to promote the development and maintenance of these community-led projects, and how we can inspire climate action among today's generation.
To know more about the platform and GLFx Mindanao, download the app from Play Store or App Store and join the GLFx Mindanao group. See you there! Together for our planet.
So thank you, Ms. Camille. And now I would like to ask everyone who has questions to add them to the chat. My colleagues and I will answer them directly there. And I would like to remind everyone to please turn off their microphone. And also, if your bandwidth permits, please open your cameras for us to see your beautiful faces of our participants. So we have been hearing about different organizations that focus on mitigating the impacts of this climate crisis, providing livelihood to local communities, and other initiatives for climate action. But how do we develop and maintain these initiatives? And what are the opinions of young leaders to further promote inclusive transformation? So to answer these questions, we will be having a brief conversation with inspiring young leaders. I would like to invite Miss Issa, Miss MJ, and Miss Kara on the screen with me. Okay, so let's wait for a moment. Hi, Miss MJ. And Miss Isa is also here with us.
Hello, Emmanuel. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So great.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. So before we proceed, I would like to ask our panel speakers to introduce yourselves to our audience and a brief background on the work that you do. So Miss Isa, we can start with you and then followed by Miss MJ and Miss Kara.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. It's super exciting to be able to join this group to talk about all these important things. I'm Issa. I'm the co-founder of a youth-run NGO called For the Future, which is fueled by storytelling and art. And we work mainly with indigenous communities and young people. Our two best friends are the Yangil tribe of Zambales and the Manoba people of Agusan Marsh, so north and south of the Philippines. And what we really try to do within For the Future is bridge young people to help work with indigenous communities who are at the forefront of protecting their ancestral lands.
Thank you so much, Miss Isa, for that. Miss MJ.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you for the celebration of World Environment Day. I hope you're having a great day today. So you can call me MJ Lamoste. I am the co-founder of Tagbi Tagbi, a social enterprise that aims to empower women in coastal communities that are facing barriers to have well-paid jobs, and as well as we want to recycle fashion waste and recycle plastic so that we can lessen the pollution we are putting in this planet. And then aside from that, I also work as the Sustainable Ocean Alliance Southeast Asia representative. So what I do is mobilize youth initiative across Southeast Asia who are advocating for life below water, which is SDG 14.
Thank you, Miss MJ. And lastly, Miss Kara.
Hi. Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be talking with Mary and Issa with regards to climate action when it comes to the youth and local run organizations. So I'm one of the co-founders of Local Lab. We're an NGO based in Siargao that really looks towards community empowerment and how we could really become a platform for the local community. Our vision is how we could showcase Siargao as a self-sustainable island when it comes to food security, livelihood security, and essentially really promoting local knowledge and how we can use that when we look for nature-based solutions co-created by the local community and those like different groups that we work with. So yeah, we'll be talking more about it as the panel discussion, and I'm excited to share what we do here in our NGO.
So thank you so much, Miss Isa, Miss MJ, and Miss Kara. It's really inspiring that there are different sectors that you represent, and to mitigate this climate crisis. And I'm really in awe with your work for the indigenous youth, women and coastal communities, and for the community empowerment. So thank you for your introduction. And before we start our panel discussion, may I please request our participants to turn on their cameras as we will be having a photo opportunity first. Okay, would that be okay with everyone? Okay, so please turn on your cameras for our photo opportunity. Okay, wait for a moment. So our technical team is still okay. Okay. It's good to see all the faces of our participants. Thank you for joining today's discussion. Okay, so for a moment, we will just count to three for our photo op. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, for the other page. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Remain smiling. Okay, so thank you, everyone. It's nice to see everyone joining us today. So I'm sure you want to get to know more about our speakers, but let us first have a nice complimentary question for our participants. So we'll be using an interactive platform called Menti, which allows us to engage with you in real time. So grab your phones or laptops and let's begin. So to join Menti, you may simply click on the link provided in the chat box or scan the QR code. All right, so our team will be sending the link in our chat box, and you have to log into Menti to access our question. Okay, for a moment. So for those who can scan the QR code, you may proceed to Menti to answer our question there. And for those who cannot scan the QR code, we'll be sending a link in a moment. Okay, so here's our Menti link. So if you have already logged in the Menti, let's start with our icebreaker question. So on your screen, you'll see our question prompt. So take a moment to read it and think of your answer. And once you have your response, type it into the Menti and hit submit. So in relation to our topic on community-led initiatives for climate action, it's also best to know what the participants does to lessen their carbon footprint or decrease their impact on the environment. So the question is, in your own little ways, what do you do to decrease your impact on the environment? So again, in your own little ways, what do you do to decrease your impact on the environment? So it can be something simple or a routine that you've adopted, and let's see what actions you're taking to make a difference. So we will give you a minute to answer the question. So for those who can access the QR code, you can access the Menti link in our chat box. So we'll be sharing the Menti screen in a moment to see your answers on the little ways that you do to decrease your impact on the environment. Okay, so here are some answers. Learn and love biology, localize, reduce plastic use, simplify your day-to-day life, study resource management. What else? Awareness on what is happening in our environment. Yes. What are the other answers? Using public transport. And okay, not buying new clothes. Yes, I relate to that. Okay for the win. Okay, wow, it's incredible to see all these responses from our participants. And okay, so thank you for that. It's wonderful to witness the collective effort that we can make towards sustainability. So remember, even in the smallest actions, we can have a significant impact when multiplied across millions of people. So now that we've heard from our participants, let us begin our panel discussion and let's get straight to our first question. So are our panel speakers ready? Please send a heart if you're ready to answer these questions and for us to get to know you more. Okay, so Miss Isa, let's start with you. So for our first question, in the Philippines, we all know that conservation is not particularly a first choice career option. So can you tell us your story and what drove you to take up this path?
Yeah, you're right. It really isn't a first option career choice, and it wasn't part of my options either growing up because I didn't know how to really get myself involved in climate action, especially years ago when I was choosing what course to take in college. So it was when I turned 23 and decided to go on a tree planting tour with Mad Travel that really just changed my life because it was there in the ancestral lands of the Yangel tribe that I was just in awe of seeing their mountains. But in the same breath, when I was looking out sa mga bundok nila, that someone told me the only reason why it looks like that is because walang puno, there's no trees. That's why you can see every ridge of the mountain. And so that same day, my friend told me, but Isa, imagine if each and every one of our friends planted just one tree each, then we could transform this whole land. And I couldn't get that out of my head because that made everything possible and it made climate action easy. And that's really how our NGO started with my best friends, is that we wanted to involve more young people like us to be part of reforestation in an easy way and with a community that has already been doing it for so many years. And so, yeah, I feel like even though I didn't have a background for the work I'm doing, I was still able to get involved because of the community that I started with.
Thank you, Miss Isa. I could also relate to that conservation wasn't really on my plans because I planned that marine biology as an undergraduate program. I would then proceed to med, but when I applied as an intern for Oceanus, it really changed my perspective. So it really boils down to one small thing that could change your mind and could change your life forever. So thank you for that, Miss Isa. Then now let's move to Miss MJ.
Ako naman, I think growing up, I've always been drawn to nature. I grew up in the mountains, and I guess in many ways, the universe finds its way for me to be involved or to be in a career that relates to conservation. So I did have a degree in marine biology, and basically the main motivation that I did that is I thought it won't involve a lot of mathematics, which is not true at all. And then my world during university days is really small. It was just 11 of us, 11 classmates. And I thought that, I will have secure job opportunity when I graduate because we are too small. And then realization hits me when I graduated at 19 that no one will take me seriously because I'm basically nobody. I just graduated from university. So in order for me to kickstart, it's not even kickstart, in order for me to really see if do I have a future as a marine bio is to start volunteering. So volunteering paid its way for me to see, what you hear in textbooks and what you see in reality. So for example, my first volunteer works was in fishery to conserve marine megafauna in the Bohol Sea. So I was so shocked that I have to deal with blood every day. We have to measure fish, thousands of fish for like months. And I think with that exposure, meeting people who are really dedicated to, to change the course of the life of the animals, and also to find ways to give back to the community is I think is a calling that led me to find my own way as well on how I can how I can better help the communities I work with in my own way. I think the reason I created Tagpi is because even if I'm not in the field anymore, I still want to continue working in a space where I'm contributing to the improvement of the lives of the people living in the coastal communities, as well as raising awareness about the wildlife diversity.
So thank you, Miss MJ. I could also relate to your story that you're really drawn to nature as much as I am because we live nearby the beach, and nung bata pa ako, palagi ako naliligo sa dagat talaga. And also, I agree then na the universe finds its way kung saan ka talaga nararapat and uh, kung anong path ka dadalhin. And also, in terms of the low enrollees for marine biology, in our school, we call ourselves the endangered species because of the low number of enrollees. But they said that there are a lot of opportunities for marine biologists. And I could attest to that because there are a lot of NGOs that hire marine biologists. And also, during my internship in Oceanus, I was really inspired in improving the lives of our coastal community. So that's also one thing why I was drawn into conservation. So thank you again, Miss Mary Jane, for that. And lastly, we have Miss Kara.
Hey, so yeah, I guess my like Issa, I also never knew that I would be entering the development field. And like my undergraduate is economics. I thought that like my classmates, I would go into investment banking or something similar to that. But then I noticed like during university, a lot of the things that I was always doing was really towards the community. I mean, during college, I love backpacking with my friends and just visiting isolated islands, going up the mountains, and really just creating that connection with the community and listening to their stories. And just seeing how much potential they had, like always made me think about them and say, like, okay, if they were born into the situation, how could their lives be much better? So anyway, like while I was writing my thesis for economics, I wrote on the impact of poverty on food inflation in the Philippines. And that's really where I saw the disparity of agricultural households and non-agricultural households and rural households versus urban households. And I mean, like growing up, like I was a city girl before I moved here to Siargao. And just that there's such a big world outside Manila, like, the Manila bubble. And just like, being exposed to these different communities really made me witness like, okay, I want to dedicate my life towards the farmers and rural areas because they need much help. Like there's so much solutions for urban areas, but what about these rural provinces don't get as much attention? So that's when I started working and volunteering in several NGOs back in Manila. But then I was just in a desk. And that's when I started to find like, okay, like these people were just beginning to become numbers. And to me, I wanted to know their stories. And that's when I decided to move here to Siargao. I found a farm that I could volunteer in. And it just so happened that I met my other co-founders now in Local Lab. And we all just had the same vision of really witnessing the potential of the local community and how you could make them reach that full potential through giving them a platform, whether it's like the community projects we co-create together. And then since then, it's really putting them in the limelight and putting the community in the spotlight, because at the end of the day, everything that we're doing is for them and to protect their environment.
Thank you for that, Miss Kara. That's so amazing. Okay. So thank you, Miss Kara. So now we've heard our panel speakers for the first session. Now let us dive deeper into the efforts that we make for climate action. So I would like to pose a question to our panel speakers. So as Filipinos or Philippine-based NGOs, are we doing enough, or is our voice loud enough to protect the environment? If not, what are the things that we need to do to make enough or to have significant impact? So, Miss MJ, if you would like to go first.
I think this is one of the questions that all of us needs to ask ourselves, not just as an NGO. But for personally, I think I would say that always remember that to create a significant impact, we need collective actions. And I think no matter how big or small our actions, it makes a lot of difference, especially when its purpose is to protect the environment and especially the people. So I think the emergence of youth-led initiatives for the past year, I think it's not that long ago that there has been a booming, initiatives of youth. And I think it has opened a lot of opportunities for our environment to be heard, for our communities to tell their stories, and as well as for the government and the policymakers to see that the youth, all of us are, acting towards the future of our planet. So what we need to do, so in order for us to, to feel that our voices are heard or our voices are loud enough, I think we need to do is to be persistent. And it's really important that we reach out to people, especially the one, like if we feel that, we're not doing anything, we're not doing enough, or we're feeling stuck. I think it's the power of mentorship is really crucial to this day. You don't need to study for 4 years for you to create a change. You can start now. And I think one way as well that I try to push through with people I met or youth, even the mothers I work with, is for them to discover and use their skills in the manner that, it aligns with their values as well. Because if you keep on just feeding them with skills and knowledge, it doesn't inspire them. It should come from their decisions themselves, that they wanna, that they wanna be part of something. They wanna be part of the community. They wanna be part of the protection of, our resources.
So thank you, Miss MJ. It really boils down to collective action, and whether is it small or big actions that you create, as long as that you're making an impact. And I could also relate to your persistence, because sometimes we get defeated when there are obstacles in our path in doing our conservation work. But we really just have to go through it and push forward for it. So thank you, Miss MJ. So now, Miss Kara, you may answer the question.
Yeah, I think like spraying up from MJ's answer, it really boils down to collective action. I think it's just making, like, to be able to create tangible change. It's ensuring that the community themselves want that change that you're so fighting for. And this is when it like comes to grassroots organizations or youth organizations, where you could usually see that happen. And it's because like our goal is really to make sure that we could see the change in the community. For example, at Local Lab, we have been getting invited to expand to other islands. But I think like what we want to really do is stay grassroots, because that's where you hear the stories, and it's from the stories that you could hear the solutions. And like being able to also take advantage of Siargao as a tourism spot. There's so many interesting people who visit the island. How could we really become that model island of change, where we involve several people in and really bringing them back to the community level? I guess sometimes it does get frustrating. Like being a Youth Filipino org, sometimes we feel that we don't have a voice, but I think it's a determination and like the passion that we keep fighting for, and just realizing that we're fighting for a bigger cause. We're fighting for the community, like Siargao having been on the forefront of the climate crisis because we did face a category 5 typhoon 2 years ago. You'd also notice the behavioral change in people of how they realize the wrath of nature and how nature is really affecting like their livelihood when it comes to fishing, when it comes to farming, and even like the tourism industry. I mean, like, how could you protect what's beautiful here if you see that the environment is fastly deteriorating, especially that we don't have proper waste disposal in the island? So I guess it also boils back to bring that awareness, and at the same time like constantly advocating for that.
Thank you, Miss Kara. Again, collective action, and of course, with the community involvement, we need to hear first from the community if they want this project, or if they're really interested with the project. And of course, community awareness is also important on what actions we can do to mitigate and to have action in this climate crisis. So thank you again, Miss Kara. And lastly, Miss Isa, what are your thoughts on the question?
If I could, I would just really echo what MJ and Kara just said. What I learned the past like 4 years working in the NGO sphere and with a lot of indigenous communities and young people is that when it really boils down to what we want to do together, it's to make our collective dream of a better future like real. And I feel like if we're talking about our NGOs doing enough, or is our voice loud enough, I feel like what NGOs are doing now, especially youth-led NGOs, is already super big and super effective. Our voice is loud and clear. I feel like what we need to continue to do is really forward the indigenous voice and the local community voice towards the front page, because these are the people who have the best relationships with nature and who already have nature-based solutions that can guide us into mitigating the effects of the climate crisis. So yeah, I feel like when the question's asked really if like NGOs are doing enough, I would say yes. It's just in terms of bringing more people together to share that dream and to make it real.
Thank you, Miss Isa. So again, it's really the collective action. That's why the slogan of Oceanus Conservation is "Together for our Planet," because we need each other's hands to protect and also conserve and really mitigate climate change through our collective action. So thank you again for that. So since we are talking about, yes, together, let us hold each other's hands. Yes, together for our planet. So since we are talking about initiatives for climate action, so in line with this is the Paris Agreement. So what is the Paris Agreement? The Paris Agreement is an international treaty adopted in 2015 under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Its goal is to limit global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius and strive for 1.5 degrees Celsius. So countries submit their climate targets and take action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It emphasizes transparency, accountability, and international cooperation to combat this climate crisis. So according to the Paris Agreement, 2050 will be the year we will achieve net zero emissions. So given the efforts we're doing today, do we wait for 2050, and what are the actions needed to do to speed it up? Or how your local action in your communities relates to a global impact? So Ms. Kara, would you mind if we start with you?
Okay, sure. Yeah, with regards to like waiting till 2050, I mean, the reason why we all have these NGOs and why the three of us started this because like we believe in the change is needed now. But I guess what I could do is like showcase like kind of share the story of like how local lab started, and it really started from realizing the issue of food security here in the island, that there were so many local farmers here, but a lot oftentimes they didn't have a marketplace to sell. And that was like kind of puzzling to us because we're like, okay, like we're an island community. We have so much small scale farmers here. How come we're not utilizing those farmers and making them reach the market? Because back then it was about 97% of the local of the vegetables being consumed here imported to the island. It didn't even come from Surigao, the mainland of Surigao. It came outside of the region from Davao and Cebu. So from there, that's when we really started talking to the farmers, finding out what they needed, and this started from a community marketplace. So from the profits that we earned from our social enterprise, which is Local Surigao, it was like a snack bar up in Burgos, 1 hour away from the tourism industry. We used that and like private donations to put up this vegetable market where we could support local producers and local artisans, and at the same time help them with capacity building and transition them towards nature-based agriculture and regenerative agriculture. And then that's when we started connecting the farmers to the tourism industry, and then it also made us realize different issues such as waste. So Siargao, half of our waste is about biodegradable waste, but then they still put it in landfills. And to us, that was like, okay, like the biodegradable waste actually could be reused and be given back to the farmers. And that's when we started our project on the composting, where it's really just what we could utilize on the land, from seaweeds to food waste, and how we can bring that back to the farmers to really close that whole gap of circularity. And with every project that we make, we always ensure that it's the local knowledge that also gets put in the forefront. Because like what Issa also mentioned earlier, like they just have so much stories to share. And imagine like islands were self-sustainable thousands of years ago, and they knew how to farm, they knew how to fish, they knew how to raise the community on their own. So it's really just bringing back that local knowledge and then coupling that with technology and innovation from all these really great research organizations, partnering with different organizations, and even like the local government, the national government, and really just gathering everyone together in one room to find out how we can solve the issues that we do today. And I guess when you think of it as a bigger picture, sometimes it does seem daunting. But when you take it like piece by piece, and then you see that actual change can be made, and that's really when you start to get on this momentum and like wanting to find out more and how you could solve these issues.
Thank you, Ms. Kara. I agree with capacitating the communities, because that's what we do also with Oceanus Conservation, for them to have that sense of ownership in their environment. So we have this project called Citizen Science Training for mangrove and seagrass monitoring, where they are incentivized to, and they also have the local knowledge to really protect and have that sense of ownership to protect their environment. Okay, so next, thanks again, Ms. Kara. So I would like to remind everyone online to add your comments in the chat, and we will note all of them down. So in the meantime, Ms. Isa, would you like to contribute to the answer?
Yeah, I don't think we should wait, and I don't think we're waiting right now for 2050, because I think even just this Zoom call is testament to how we're already trying to speed things up into that collective dream. But one thing that For the Future does is really capacity building using creative tools for Indigenous youth to tell their own stories, like what Kara and MJ were saying, to really uplift and illuminate Indigenous peoples and their knowledge for collective action. So we shouldn't wait, and our solutions, our local solutions, are really the way forward towards sustainability for our country.
Thank you, Ms. Isa. So we really have to empower our local communities, because they have the knowledge, and you could just like what Ms. Kara said earlier, couple it with technology for it to be for us to take action and for us to speed up this action, and we will not wait for 2050. So thank you, Ms. Isa. So Miss MJ.
Okay. I would like to start with asking a question to the audience. They can decide to answer or not, but they can also reflect. So here it goes. So, what ideas do you have at this moment that you would like to do? And then what is, how do you say, what's the barrier that's causing you not to do it, and what support you need to make it happen? And I guess to address the question, if do we need to wait? I don't think we should wait any seconds. I think the clock is ticking, and a lot of distraction is happening at this moment while we are doing this webinar. But as personal commitment of Tagpi Tagpi, so we've been doing Tagpi Tagpi since 2020, the onset of pandemic, and I think at the beginning, our main purpose really is to provide additional source of income for the women, especially during the lockdown. And then I think throughout the time, we figure out that fashion waste in itself is one of the major polluters of of this planet. The second issue that we are dealing next to plastic, and I think having that problem putting into a solution, I don't encourage everyone to keep on buying clothes, because we are also, I think we are still accumulating. We are still not supporting our planet if we just keep on buying clothes that we are not using in the end. So I guess by the end of the day, we just need to ensure that, resources that we take from the planet, or any resources that we use it in the right way. I guess we use it until we can never use it again. And then I think one of the ways of amplifying that your solution is probably a solution that's working is to validate. So by validating means you need to show to people, not just within your crowd, that your solution is probably working or maybe not working, and you can only know that it's a good solution if you share to people. And then when people see that your solution is good, I think that you will get support. So when I started Tagpi Tagpi, I didn't really have much people supporting me, and then I guess I joined Sustainable Ocean Alliance, and it's a really huge network of youth. And by just showing to them, I went to a conference. I was like 10 years old, bringing these toys, explaining to them that this is made of upcycled clothes, recycled plastic, and it's handmade by women in the community. I think they understand that this grassroots solutions are, creating opportunities not just for the women's, but also to showcase the vulnerability, and also the impacts of the climate change in our environment.
Thank you so much, Miss MJ. So we have a question here from our participants. So a question to all the panelists, and there's also a question for Miss Kara. So I guess we should start first for all the panelists. So what measurable impact has your project achieved so far? So would anyone like to start? Okay, so I'll just call one of our panelists. Miss Kara, I think you're ready to answer the question.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, like I guess when we started this NGO back like how many years ago, it really started first from like collecting more of the stories and the impact from there. I mean, like none of us were really professionals in the development field. We didn't know anything about like the monitoring and evaluation, pre and post. It was more of us seeing that we made an impact from seeing how the community reacted and seeing the change after. But now as like we're growing our NGO and trying to formalize, and with grants, you need all those proper things. But I think like the biggest impact that we really saw was the behavioral change of whenever we work with the community. Like they don't know, like I'm sure they don't know the technical terms of like when we talk about like nature-based solutions, but then you see that they're already implementing it in their everyday lives. When we talk about like food security, you see that the farmers we've trained start to then train and teach their own community about how to grow their own food. They start to seed save, they start to utilize what's on their ground instead of relying on the free fertilizers from the DA. Now it's really just like recycling and reusing everything that they have. So I think when it like comes to impact, like that's the biggest thing that we would say that we do in local, like really just like the livelihood empowerment with the communities that we work with. I guess where we have our measurable impact was when we were forced to do, when we ended up doing disaster relief during the typhoon. That's something that we had no background in at all, but then because we were here in the community, we listened to their needs, we saw what they needed, contrary to like how the international organizations were reacting to the disasters. What we did first was put the locals at the forefront and just find a way to connect them to their needs. So we were able to rebuild a lot of homes, fishing boats for livelihood. We helped rebuild a lot of farms and also started immediate livelihood projects such as Cocoa Lab, which was like our debris to shelter program, where we were able to save more than 4,000, 5,000 trees and repurpose that into lumber for rebuilding. We did some community kitchens in the island where we were able to employ about 544 women and serve almost 2 million meals in 6 months. So like those are where we have data, but when it comes to like environmental data, that's something we're also still striving for, and how to really properly do that, because if we want help, especially from those people who have money and could bring it back to the community, sometimes the only thing they really listen to are numbers. And I'm sure MG and Issa also relate to this. And it's kind of like just how we could use our network and share our stories, but at the same time, get these numbers that they want and show that there could be actual tangible change and sustainable change.
Okay, so thank you, Miss Kara. So would anyone would like to add?
Yeah.
Miss Isa.
Actually, jumping in on what Kara said, because we worked together for typhoon relief, where a network of youth run NGOs raised over 390,000 US dollars for communities that were devastated by the typhoons. And when we set up this program, we didn't really have like KPIs or anything to measure impact, but what we do know is that we reached over 60 areas to provide clean water, solar lights, healthy food, what's it called? Portable housing. And now we're setting that typhoon relief project into providing education for typhoon affected communities all over the country. And we're sending over 60 students back to school from indigenous communities through this program, so that by providing education, they become the next generation of future leaders who are protecting their land. And also, I really just related to what Kara said, because there is a lot of behavioral change when we do get to support communities who are at the forefront of protecting their areas. Now, from 4 years ago, the Yangil community would always ask us, like, what can we make to earn money? What can we plant? But now when we go back to the Yangil community, they already made a handicraft and show us, and like, this is what we want to do. This is the trees we want to plant. These are the seeds that we need to help in the reforestation. And it's those changes that really show us that the support that we are able to give the communities really matter, not just for the community themselves, but for the land that they're protecting as well. When we protect their people, we also protect their home. And I feel like that's one of the core beliefs for the future talaga.
Thank you, Miss Isa. Miss MJ, do you have any thoughts?
Okay. Yeah, I'll maybe go straight to numbers. I can add some more later on. Since 2020, so far, we've trained 3 coastal communities, and then among those 3 communities, there are 2 women who are running their own groups now, and by far we're employing 10 women in the area. And in terms of upcycled denims and clothes, I think it's 7,000 plus now since 2020, and that's majority of that comes from ukay shop, and that is the livelihood of this 10 women since 2020. So I think that's an achievement already. And then out of that 7,000 jeans upcycled, we've created 5,000 plushies. So we are mostly how do you say, showcasing plush toys, because it's one way for us to showcase the environment. And then I think when we begin, it's really funny because most of the women I work with, they live in the coast, but they don't even know how to swim. So you ask them, how do we make designs? I think at the beginning I was showing them pictures. I think that's the easiest way to do that. And then I think I've come to realize that these women don't know how to swim. They've never seen underwater because they're always just on the shore. They're on the beach. So what we did like a year ago, I think, is we bring them to the ocean for snorkeling. And I think it was amazing to see them like getting really excited, getting more inspired that they are seeing what they're making. So for sure, it's not all of the organisms that they're creating. Like for example, in Negros, it's the place where you can see a lot of turtles. So all of the women I work with, they've seen the turtles, and we really hope that we can do more of this immersion in the water with them, because I think the more they are immersed with the environment, the more they become receptive of what you gave them. So as Isa and Kara mentioned, that behavior change is really, it gets more obvious when you see it in their personal lives. And I think one way of showing that in Tagpi is that some of the women invested in washing machine, because they feel that they can save time washing laundry. And then I did not tell them like, hey, you should save time. It's their way of like, okay, I'm earning money, how can I maximize my time? Like I think a lot of us are using washing machine for to make our life easier. And I think coming from the women who has been doing it with their hands, it's already an achievement for them to have that kind of investment. So I think there are tangible and non-tangible investment, achievements that the social enterprise is giving back to the communities.
So thank you so much to our three panelists. Your works have really made an impact, and of course, I think the number one thing there is the behavioral change and how you've allowed these communities to have their initiative and for them to mobilize their own livelihood and for them to survive in their day-to-day life. So now let's explore ways in which individuals and organizations can support and collaborate with communities in their climate action efforts. So what is the number one action that organizations like yours should take to improve the way you work with communities and also to ensure local perspectives and needs are appropriately addressed? So Ms. Issa, we can start with you.
Okay, so one major thing that we always like to do is start off by listening to the community, and listening is very different from hearing. Listening is really this is like building that relationship with the community that you're working with, and having that safe space to listen to all the issues, the dreams, the problems, the community chismes, everything has really helped in building for the future's relationships with the communities that we work with, because we're not just working for them, we're working with them, and that has made the world of difference in restoration projects, especially with the Yangil tribe. So yeah, I think the one thing I would give us advice is really to be able to be a friend to the communities that you work with.
So thank you, Ms. Issa. How about Ms. Kara?
Yes, exactly. Gonna say what Issa said also, to listening. I mean, like, it's really through stories where you can change systems. And it's like you find all these answers in stories as building a relationship with the community. making them feel as if they are part of the solution. And I think that's one thing that we'd always want to ensure, that they're not ostracized by the progress of tourism in the island, for example, and that they're always going to play an important role, because at the end of the day, this is their island. This is their island to protect, and it's just giving them the tools to be able to protect their island in the right way when it comes to like tourism development, or also like the climate crisis. Just giving them that tools, because it's when you empower them and when you make them believe and really shed a light on their potential. Because they, like, once you listen to their stories, like sometimes, yeah, it's just amazing seeing how much potential they have. And sometimes you're like, oh, if only they were born in like my place where we could help. And I guess that's like with a lot of the volunteers we have, when people like who want to help out, it's always that, because like they want to be able to be part of the solution that we co-create together. And I think that's one thing that we always want to ensure, like in NGOs, it's that the community is always put at the center of it. I guess like one really cool thing was that like we had a few weeks ago, like we had this workshop with the United Nations, and it was where now they're bringing back the disaster relief to the community levels. Like I was the one who represented grassroots organizations among a group of leaders, and like being able to now finally see that they're listening to our local organizations, that they know that the answers are at the community, and finally giving us that power makes me more hopeful that people are going towards this path, right? And I guess it's also just like not being afraid of what might happen, but at the same time, like never losing that motivation to know that this change can happen, and we're like really moving towards it.
Thank you so much, Miss Kara. And lastly, Miss MJ.
Yeah, I think I would just reiterate the importance of inclusivity. So I think when we introduce something to a community, we are there. So listen to them, as Kara and Isa mentioned, that we are just passerbys in some way. And then I think when we create an organization in an inclusive way, it creates an environment where people trust what you're saying. If you trust, they will start, giving their ideas. I think it matters that when you're creating a solution, their solution is, in front of what you've told them. And I think when they have the sense of ownership of the solution, I think that creates a stronger community of, I want to make this happen. I want to support what this organization are trying to do in our community. So yeah, inclusivity is really important.
Wow, inspiring insight. So we really have to start listening to the communities and empower them, and also capacitate them with their and enhance their knowledge on these issues now. And also, I was really moved by Miss Issa Barte when she said you need to be a friend with the communities that you're working with, and also for you to build that trust with them. And also through the stories, on what Miss Kara said, that through stories you can change systems, and I really believe in that. And of course, we are all part of the solution, and we are not just creating problems, but we are really part of those solutions. And having that sense of ownership and believing in ourselves, and for us to inspire the communities also to believe in themselves that they are part of the solution, is really an inspiring work. So thank you for all your excellent insights. So one very final question to the three of you, Miss Isa, Miss MJ, and Miss Kara. So in 1 to 2 words, what is your key takeaway or message for our participants? We can start with Miss Isa.
Parang konti yung 2 words. Pero yung message ko talaga is that you really don't need to be anyone else to be a person that can change the world. Right now, we need you with your set of skills, your passions, and your dreams to join us to make our collective dream come true.
Thank you, Miss Isa. Miss MJ.
Okay. for me naman, small actions hold significance. So when we do things genuinely, they have the power to transform lives.
Thank you, Miss MJ. Lastly, Miss Kara.
I guess if it's one word, it's really like bayanihan, you know. I mean, like just seeing the culture of bayanihan really ingrained in all the communities that we're in, where regardless in the Philippines, you really just see people coming together. And it's like really never letting go of that community aspect where you believe that it's through working collectively that you could really create this change.
Thank you so much. So it boils down really to collective action, and of course, you can be anyone and still make a big difference or change in our planet. So thank you, panelists, for your insightful contributions. Your expertise will undoubtedly inspire our participants to take action and support community-led initiatives. So we are a little bit over time, but we can have 1 to 2 questions in the chat here for the panelists. It would be nice if you could take a minute to respond to them. So just check the chat. So these are questions from participants during the registration. So first, aside from tree planting activities, which is a fairly common choice but often unregulated, what are the other possible interventions and actions by the OREB in partnership with the academic sector? So this is from Josephine Eliza Bibal from Liceo University. So would anyone like to answer this question?
I guess I could answer it. With Local, like one of our biggest programs now is that we're building a school for island communities. So it's called Tropical Academy. And with that, we really wanted to be able to create a playground for these academics that come in to really research on the solution, on the issues, and how they could couple that with their innovation and knowledge with the local knowledge that we have here. And I guess when it comes to the academic sector, what people love listening to is those people from the academia, if they could provide numbers, or if they could provide impacts and studies and research. And it's always like by creating these studies that focus on the communities, making sure that all the research that we're doing now is usable for the projects that all these communities that are implementing. I think that's a good way to start.
Thank you, Miss Kara, for that. Miss MJ, would you like to add?
Yeah, I think I would love to add on the question by Ariana. What is the most valuable asset or tool youth have to combat climate change? So I think at this moment, social media platforms are really creating a lot of loud voices on, especially I think among us, Isa have used her platform to really, ensure that the issue of climate change is being heard by the community or the people around using social media. So I think it's one way for each one of you to use this tool to, just even a single post like, hey, I'm like raising awareness. If you see someone like throwing plastic, I think calling out in social media, it's probably not the best idea, but I think it's one way of ensuring that we have eyes and we are, we see what you're doing, and, we are not, how do you call, like, hindi namin papalagpasin ng ginagawa nyo. So I think, yeah, just use the social media platform in the right manner and in an impactful way. I think that's a healthy way of using it as a way of combating climate change.
So we're very sorry because we're running out of time, and we will try to answer and send these other questions in the chat box to our panelists and send them to you, their answers to you. So thank you for your insights, Miss Isa, Miss Mary Jane, and Miss Kara. It has been great listening about the work and the insights of young leaders, of course, and also women on community-led initiatives for climate action. So thank you so much for these inspiring women and for the thought-provoking discussion and for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. So before we end this session, I would like to take 2 minutes to invite everyone from Mindanao to join us in our GLFx Mindanao chapter. And also, certificates will be given through email. And let's take a moment. So we'll be sending the certificates after this event, as long as you have registered through our Zoom registration. Once again, thank you so much to all our amazing participants for tuning in and engaging. And a big thank you to our inspiring panel speakers for sharing your knowledge and experiences with us today. So you may check their websites and social media pages to check out more of their work. For Miss Issa Barte for the Instagram at for the and also for their website for the future.org. And for Tagpi, Miss MJ. And for Tagpi at Tagpi_Tagpi for Instagram. And for Miss Kara, they also have a website. I'm sorry, tagpi.car.co. And for local lab, Miss Kara's org, Instagram is at local lab and website is localsiargao.com. So we hope that today's discussion has inspired our participants to take action in their communities. Remember, it is through collective effort that we can combat this climate crisis. And let's continue to empower and support local solutions for a sustainable future. Together for our planet. Happy World Environment Day. Thank you everyone for joining this webinar. Thank you everyone. So you could now leave the Zoom meeting, guys. So we will be just sending the certificates on your emails that you provided during the registration.